Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Kate, I make videos about books and bookish things, and I am coming to you with a good old-fashioned reading wrap-up. The last time you saw me I was in my final week of my second term at university, and I have now spent the last 4 weeks at home on holiday. Well, not entirely at home, I spent 2 and a bit of them in Canada on holiday with my significant other, but that's besides the point. I thought it would be good to just go through the stuff I've been reading recently, because I've read a lot of good stuff. None of them really warranted like an entire video of their own, but they were all good enough that I wanted to talk about them. I have 6 books to get through, but one of them is a reread, so I won't talk about it a huge amount. The first book that I read after finishing up university for the term, All of the Above by Juno Dawson. I finally got around to reading this. I bought this before I started university, so it's been on my reading pile for a hot second. All of the Above is a story about 16-year-old Toria who moves to a new area and a new school for her final year of secondary school, and it is about the friends and relationships that she has there. It is a very, very simple coming-of-age story on the surface, but in reality it is a very, very messy story about growing up, specifically around a lot of people who are not doing okay. It was a really interesting read, and I think mostly because it hit way too close to home. And I don't know how much to say, because I don't know whether this is one of those experiences that is surprisingly universal, where you bring it up and everyone's like, oh yeah, I had that, you know, that's just a thing, or whether it just reveals how deeply unhealthy my experiences of year 10 and year 11 were in secondary school. But either way, it deals with a lot of themes. This is a book where I say please check the trigger warnings before reading, because it deals with everything from eating disorders to internalised homophobia to police brutality in some measure, potentially self-harm, suicide, grief. There's a lot that goes on. But I thought it was really, really interesting. It is very much of its time, and there was a fair whack of language in there that I did not feel necessarily comfortable with, so there is a bit of ableism and some anti-autistic sentiment, which was not fantastic. I think it can be just moved past on the basis that it is clearly just of its time, but I did read that and kind of go, ooh, this is not making me very fond of the main character who's having these opinions on the people around her. It's hard to say whether I think this was well done, because it portrayed such an accurate depiction of teenagers being mentally unwell and making each other worse and also supporting each other, which, as I say, is an experience I very much had when I was growing up, or whether it is kind of glamorizing and romanticizing these things by turning it into a fictionalized story. Hard to say, but I definitely won't forget about this book for quite some time, because it hit different, you know? Specifically as well, the relationship between Toria and Polly was a really, really interesting one. Toria is, of course, the new kid trying to make a good impression, and Polly is this loudmouth, swearing, alternative dressing, big personality who immediately latches onto Toria and goes, that one, I want that one to be my friend. And it had a very, very intense, codependent streak to it, their relationship, and again, it hit very, very close to home as someone who's been in those very intense female friendships that are hard to shake off and leave you quite damaged if they end. Very interesting story. I think I'd give it on balance like 3.5 stars, because it's nothing particularly special for the general population, I would say. It just has a very particular place in my mind due to my own experiences. But yeah, if any of those things ring any bells, you know, if you read the blurb or you want to talk to me more about it in the comments, if any of these experiences ring a bell to you, interesting, very interesting, may make you feel incredibly seen, could also trigger you a lot. So yeah, All of the Above by Juno Dawson, very glad to have read it. Would I recommend it? Hard to say. So on the back of All of the Above, which was very sort of its time, not the most politically correct, I then read Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reid. This was a big one in about 2020, slightly later, and I can see why. Very, very interesting. Such a Fun Age is sold as being the story of when a black young woman named Amira is apprehended at a supermarket for babysitting a white child, and so the security guard at the supermarket believes she has abducted her. In reality, I think this is more accurately described as being about when Alex, the white woman who employs Amira, takes it upon herself to try to start a connection between them. Because Alex is a bit of a yummy mummy. She's a mummy blogger influencer who has made fame online by being an empowered, sort of self-taught woman. She made headlines by breastfeeding her baby on stage at a panel and things like that. And Amira is her working girl. You know, she babysits the kids while Alex is off being a yummy mummy influencer. And this book is really about how that weird attempt at a connection and a person who connects both Amira and Alex entering Amira's life changes everything between them and makes them both ask a lot of questions about responsibility and privilege. I thought it was a really, really interesting book, and I thought it was superbly written. It's a pretty short book as well, I will say. It is only just 300 pages long, and it crams so much stuff in there. I really, really liked the writing style. I found it really engaging, and I particularly, which is going to be quite different to what I say in a moment with another book, I really, really appreciated the inclusion of AAVE in the conversations that Amira has with her fellow black friends. It really, really drew the parallels between these lives she lives as, you know, nursemaid to a white family where she is doing her best to be proper and to earn her wages effectively, and to the woman she is when she's around her friends, the people she's known all her life and the ones who make her feel the most like herself. As well as that, seeing Alex grappling with control and attempting to sort of have her cake and eat it in many ways. You know, she wants the perfect nursemaid in Amira, but now she also wants a friend. She wants someone she can be allies with. And it was a really, really interesting exploration of female empowerment and female relationships, but specifically from that racial lens. Because we don't take things in isolation, everything has context in this. Lots of difficult conversations, lots of very interesting moral quandaries, all wrapped up in a really engaging story with very, very believable characters. I have to say as well, the writing of Briar, who is the child that Amira babysits, Briar was so well written. I fully believe that was just a 2-year-old being a 2-year-old. Excellently done. And the interactions between Briar and Amira were some of my favourite moments in the book because they are just so sweet and genuine. Anyway, white girl's opinion on a story about racial privilege aside, I thought it was really good. It definitely deserves the hype it received in the last couple of years, and I would definitely recommend it if you are looking to read some stuff about privilege. And just have a think while you're enjoying yourself, you know? Good book. Now we come to the book I read right before leaving for Canada, which I was definitely not in the right mental state to be reading at that point. Summer Bird Blue by Akemi Dawn Bowman. This is one that I was very excited to read because it had been highly promoted by Queen herself, Alice Oseman, and Paperback Dreams had talked about it. We know how I feel about Paperback Dreams' opinions as well, and is generally one that I had heard a lot of good things about. Summer Bird Blue is a story about Rumi, who in the first chapter of this book is involved in a car crash that kills her younger sister, Leah. Leah is only a year or two younger, and they had essentially been creative partners as well as family. They wrote music together, and all Rumi's ideas of the future involved her sister, with them writing music together, touring the world together, and life wasn't life without Leah in it. So when Leah dies so suddenly, she is thrown into a completely inconsolable grief. As well as this, her mother is of course destroyed. It was her mother driving the car at the point at which Leah died, and so her mother sends her off to Hawaii to stay with her aunt to give them the space to recover. Although this book says that it is mostly about Rumi's grief around Leah, I found that one of the most engaging aspects of this as well was the grief that Rumi feels, effectively survivor's guilt. Rumi feels incredibly guilty that she was the one to live while Leah died, specifically because she believes that Leah was her mum's favourite child, and that her mum casting her away at the first opportunity is another sign of that. So a lot of it is handling the grief of feeling like she is the unwanted child and that her mother does not accept her because of this very difficult circumstance. So it is that reconciling of being the only one left and being the one that nobody wants, which was devastating. Even more so, I think, than all the grief around Leah. I've never lost a sibling, and I hope I never do. I love my sibling with all of my heart. And it was so emotional thinking about that parental baggage that she was now dealing with. The main crux of this story comes from Rumi's attempt to recover, or resistance to recovering really, in Hawaii, with her two next door neighbours to her aunt's house. On one side of the house there is teenage surfer boy with gorgeous hair and shiningly blue eyes, Kai, and on the other side is an incredibly grief-stricken old man in his own right, George Watanabe, and the two of them combined help to lift Rumi out of her grief and to at least accept that there is a life beyond the one that she imagined with Leah, even though it will never quite live up to those expectations she had in her head. I thought this book was so heartbreaking. It's a long book. This is a solid 400 pages of someone in the deepest throes of grief, and it doesn't shy away from the gross bits either. It talks about how little Rumi is eating, the fact that she doesn't shower, the fact that she's curled up in a hole in her room effectively, the fact that she wants to tear things down, she wants to hurt people, she wants to hurt herself, and that she is so miserable in this. So it's quite a lot to read. I also read it across one day as well, which meant I was really quite saturated in all of Rumi's feelings. It was really well written. I thought it was an incredible exploration of sibling love, of grief, of survivor's guilt, of what it means to be an artist, and what it means to attempt to heal even when you aren't quite ready to let go. I thought that Kai was an excellent character. He was so sweet and he made the perfect balance with Rumi. It did feel a little bit, you know, manic pixie dream girl at times where, you know, charming, happy-go-lucky guy turns up and is happy to accept all the abuse the girl throws at him because he's just so intrigued by her. But I couldn't really hold it against him because he was sunshine personified, and he and Rumi did end up getting along, which can't fault that really. George as well, the elderly neighbour, was a really interesting character because although Rumi doesn't realise that he is suffering a very similar grief to her to begin with, they do connect, and they connect through music. She overhears him listening to records in his house one night after weeks where she has been unable to listen to music, to think about it, let alone to think about writing a song to commemorate Leah effectively. She hears him playing records, she sneaks over to his house. They sit together in isolation, not saying anything and just listening to music in the dead of night. And it is one of the first things that helps Rumi start to get moving again with taking care of herself. Also, Rumi is dealing with her sexuality and her romantic identity. At the very end of the book, she identifies as aro ace, but specifically only through fumbling through an attempted romantic relationship, which I wasn't expecting going into it because I'd heard a lot of praise for the exploration of aromantic and asexual identity in this, and I don't like it very much. Personally, it's not a trope I enjoy. I'd rather someone just figure it out on their own time rather than, you know, the inevitable sort of victim blaming that goes on with, oh no, I started this relationship and it's all my fault that it's falling apart. Not my favourite. However, any aro ace representation gets an extra kudos from me because we need more of it, so yeah, the fact that she exists at all is a win. One of the things I found interesting in this book was the use of the Hawaiian dialect pidgin in the writing, which was not something I'd come across. So if I referred to it inaccurately, please let me know, because I am just unaware. It was really interesting, however, it is broadly something I don't like very much in books. I find it very hard to stay engaged and immersed in a story where I am having to try to pass through a dialect or a vernacular in order to try and work out what they're even saying, let alone the accent that it's supposed to be said with. So I did find it pulled me out of the story at times where I was trying to work out what George Watanabe was saying, or Kai sometimes. It did pull me out of it. However, I recognise the importance of including these vernaculars and dialects in stories in order to be able to talk about these cultures more. So I'm not going to bash it, I'm just going to say that's a personal preference of mine, and I probably would have been more engaged in the story if it hadn't been there, but as it was, I was still pretty engaged. I thought it was a really interesting book. Will I read it again anytime soon? Probably not. It was so much to go through, especially right before I was on a plane for 7 hours, but yeah, Summerbird Blue by Kemi Dawn Bowman, really good, really interesting. Oh my god, is it heavy? Take care of yourself if you do read it. I would say I give this a 4 stars just, you know, based on merit alone. It does so many good things, but for me personally it's probably more of a 3.5 because it's good. It just didn't didn't touch me in that way. And then I needed something to bring with me on the plane to Canada, and I wanted something familiar. I also didn't want like an old comfort book that I've read a billion times before, so I brought with me The Sound of Stars by Alicia Dow. I read this for the first time on my birthday last year, 30th of December, and I made a video about it. You know, there's a full half an hour of me talking about this book up there, or maybe there, whichever side it is. So if you want my extended thoughts on it, they sure are extended thoughts, but I read this again. I read it on the plane, and then I also read it a little bit while I was with my significant other. So The Sound of Stars is about a girl named Ellie, who is a black girl living in a building controlled by aliens who invaded the Earth over 2 years ago and are now attempting to enact their final plan to turn Earth into a vacation destination for aliens and other alien species across the universe. However, she runs an illegal library. Books and all art forms have been banned under the Allori aliens on the basis that artwork makes humans more likely to rebel by inspiring them. Her illegal library, though, is discovered by Morris, an alien who likes music, and so he decides to take a chance on Ellie to keep her secret so long as she will get him music. However, she is ratted out, she is threatened with execution, and at the last minute Morris swoops in and saves her, and together they go on a road trip across America to attempt to put into action a plan that Morris and some other rebelling aliens have had to try to save Earth. It's a grand old time, basically. I've described it so many times at this point to my friends and on the internet, and it's just wholesome. I will say, having read it a second time, I feel like I gave it a bit too much credit last time. Reading it this time, I did find it a little bit more cliche, tiny bit cringe in places, and I was particularly unimpressed with the writing style. I think I just found it very, very basic compared to some of the other stuff I've read recently, but it's a good time. It's a fun story. It has a demisexual alien in it. What more do you want? Like, I can't discredit this book. Yes, it's a bit basic, but like, it has an alien who likes David Bowie in it. What more do I need to say? In that aspect, it's a great freaking book. More people need to read it. So yes, after reading it a second time, it went down a little bit in my estimations. However, you will never hear me say a bad thing about this book, aside from those things I just said. But you know what? I am choosing to be willfully ignorant. I am choosing to overlook its own lacking qualities. This is still a 5-star book, and I don't care what you tell me. We love a bit of trashy comfort. Also, there's no fan fiction for it, which I will be changing at some point. If you see me posting under the AO3 tag The Sound of Stars, and no you didn't. Anyway, yeah, I read this again. It's perfect. Like, I don't know what you want me to say. I fucking love it. Please, more people read it, please. Friends in real life, if you want to read it, if I've convinced you, I'll lend you the book. Then the next book I read was The Cybernetic Tea Shop by Meredith Katz. I read it all in one go. It is a tiny, tiny book. It is, let's find out, 110 pages. So this is a really, really comfortable length for if you literally just want a morning in bed to read, which is exactly what I had, and it was perfect. Cybernetic Tea Shop is the story of Clara Gutierrez, who is an AI repair technician who lives a nomadic lifestyle. This is a world in which AI has been created and is now an integrated part of life. People have little pets that sit on their shoulders that are there to essentially take care of them. They're there to be like living Fitbits, effectively, but with more bells and whistles. And so Clara moves around America, sorting them out, working for people for maybe a month or two at a time before uprooting herself and moving on again. However, she ends up in a little town with a place called the Cybernetic Tea Shop, run by Sal. Sal is a robot that is from the generation before the current AIs that Clara works on. In fact, she is part of a decommissioned line of robots that were decided that they were just too emotional. And so Sal has been stuck running this tea shop for the last 300 years, 200 of those being after her original owner died. However, due to her programming, she is stuck fulfilling the wishes of her owner, which is coded into her. And so she just runs the tea shop day in, day out. However, Clara comes in, they strike up a friendship, and together they start to bond until the point at which Sal believes she is ready to move on. It was lovely. I really liked this story. The world building was excellent. Clara and Sal were such gorgeous characters. You really feel the rich sort of steampunky vibes of this. It reminded me a lot of the Professor Layton games, if you've played any of those, with just the sort of vague historical but still steampunky vibes of there is technology, however we also have cute little tea shops and everything is slightly sepia toned. It was gorgeous, it was lovely. I have one complaint, and that is that it is 110 pages long. I want a full novel about this. I want a whole novel. I don't care if nothing happens in it. I just want to read more about Clara and Sal running a tea shop together, about them building a bond with each other, and specifically about the queer platonic bond that they have. I saw this book on an asexual reading list, and it is on there because although Sal can do connection, she can do deep, meaningful, basically romantic connection, she can't do sexual connection, and although with her previous owner she did fulfill a sexual role in their relationship, she wasn't into it, really. She was happy to make her owner happy, but it wasn't something that she herself felt the drive for, very like a sex-positive asexual. So when she and Clara enter a more connected relationship, she says, look, this is something I can do for you, just know I won't be getting anything out of it myself. And Clara goes, hey, no worries, I'm asexual, I don't want to be doing that stuff with you. We can just be sweet, sapphic, robot human lovers with no sexual aspect to our relationship. And it was lovely. Yeah, I love this book so much. I thought it was gorgeous. I just want there to be more of it, very simply. So yeah, Cybernetic Tea Shop, recommend. Just be aware you will want more at the end. And then the final book that I read in these last few weeks, Finding Your Feet by Cass Lennox. This was amazing. I loved this so much. This is the story of Evie, a future master's student who is moving to Toronto for her master's programme. However, that's not for a good couple of months and she is so sick of her family back in England. So she moves over to Toronto to stay with a friend of hers that she made online, specifically through asexual forums and Tumblr groups. And then she gets talent spotted for a dance competition. Through this dance competition, she meets someone who is in fact the mutual friend of her ace friend Sarah, Tyler. Tyler is grumpy. He does not want to be doing this dance competition, however it will give him more money. He is also recovering from an emotionally abusive relationship which happened a good couple of years ago, and during that time he was not okay with doing partnered dance, specifically because it played on all the insecurities his ex had put into him. So when he gets given sunshine personified but very severe British Evie as his dance partner, Tyler's not really looking forward to it. However, they get on really well, they dance together, they have lots of bonding, and it is perfect. I love this book so much. It hit everything I wanted it to. You know, Evie is asexual, so she is specifically a branch of queer that doesn't get a lot of representation, and she talks about it in the context of this dance programme. However, she has a lot of ace friends. Her friend Sarah that she is living with is asexual, but is in a relationship with a non-binary person. It is just a queer platonic one. She meets other friends that she met through the internet who are also aspec and arospec, and it is amazing. And then there's Tyler, who is straight but trans, so he's another niche part of the queer umbrella where, yes, he's only into women, but he is still very much queer. And it was so wonderful watching them fall in love with each other. They had the most genuine connection, and also what a soft way to fall in love with someone, by dancing with them. It was just incredible. I loved every moment of it. Yes, there is an inevitable third act breakdown, but it was done really, really well, and it was all based on very realistic aspects of their characters and their relationships, so I wasn't even mad because I knew it was coming, because of course there's a third act breakdown in romance books. I just really, really liked it. You remember last year when I did the mid-year freakout tag and I said, I don't really get crushes on book characters. Maybe it's because I'm embracing my ace side, maybe it's because I just don't read that many attractive male characters. Tyler has changed that. Tyler is exactly what I like, and Tyler is such a fantastic character, and I loved reading about him and Evie's relationship. It was perfect. Also, very, very similar to me and my love life and my living situation, and so it was hitting all the right beats. It was such a wonderful time. I just loved reading this book and I cannot recommend it more highly. Again, it's a little bit on the short side. It is just over 200 pages, it is 230, so again, if there could be more of it, I would love it. However, turns out this is part of a sort of spin-off series which is called The Toronto Diaries, but it is all about the various couples that Evie meets while she is there. My one complaint, of all the couples that it explores, it does not explore my favourite one. Where is the Sarah and Bailey justice? I now need a spin-off story about Sarah and Bailey, either them getting together or them just being cute domestic QPR buddies, because it was lovely. I really enjoyed this book. Again, I'm going slightly mad talking about it, but yeah, can't recommend it enough. If you want just something sweet, queer, internety, would highly recommend. Please read this book. I will be thinking of nothing but Evie and Tyler for at least the next 10 working days, so yes. That is all the books I wanted to talk about. Hello, Editing Kate here. It's been a while since I filmed this video, and, you know, I'm now coming to it significantly after the point at which I recorded it, and so I need to say thank you so much for 250 subscribers. Like, we hit 100 at the start of the year, and now we're at over double that, so all I can really say is a massive thank you to everyone who has subscribed, who's been watching and enjoying my videos, and yeah, back to the outro. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. I hope this was interesting. I hope I've got some new recommendations for you. I've really enjoyed talking about these books. I didn't realise how much I'd missed doing just stand-up talking videos after filming a vlog over an entire week, but yeah, please like this video if you did indeed like it. Comment down below if you've read any of these books and what your thoughts were, or just let me know if I've encouraged you to read one of these. Feel free to subscribe if you want to see more of my bookish content, and I will see you next time. Just forgot the word for supermarket. I go insane talking about this book. Oh, what is wrong with me?